loveliest listener of the ton. London will forgive almost anything. A gambling habit, a cruel remark, an affair if it's conducted with enough elegance to be called unfortunate. But London does not forgive a woman who refuses to be ashamed. They had been waiting for Miss Amara Whitlock to break, waiting the way they waited for storms to finally spill rain, patiently, eagerly, with their mouths already open for the spectacle. Because 3 years ago, a viscount's son fell from a balcony during a masquerade, and Amara was the last person seen with him alive. No charges were ever laid, no proof was ever found, but proof was never London's favorite thing. London preferred a story, and the story was delicious. Amara Whitlock, beautiful, sharp-tongued, too confident for a girl with no real fortune, had tempted a gentleman into the dark, and the dark had swallowed him. So when Amara returned to society in the spring of 1819, the ton did not greet her like a young lady. They greeted her like a match being struck. Amara moved through Mayfair as though she could not hear them. She had learned early that if you flinch, people lean in harder. Her mother, Lady Whitlock, had trained her with a smile that never trembled and a voice that never begged. "Never give them your fear," Lady Whitlock used to say. "Fear is the only currency they can always afford." Lady Whitlock was dead now, dead quietly, respectably, alone. And when Amara stood beside her mother's grave, she had sworn that if London wanted her to be a villain, she would at least become a villain who won. The problem was that winning required money, and Amara had almost none. The Whitlock estate in the country was mortgaged to the rafters, the London townhouse was rented, servants had been dismissed in careful waves, like grief. She had one remaining asset, a small wooden box of letters her mother had kept hidden behind a false panel in her dressing mirror. Letters sealed with a crest Amara had never seen in her home before, a stag pierced by a sword. And across the first letter, in a hand that looked too disciplined to belong to anyone kind, were the words, "Burn after reading." Amara did not burn them. She read every last one, and by the time she reached the final page, her throat felt like it had been cut, because the letters weren't love letters. They were proof. Proof that the man who died at the masquerade, Frederick Linton, had been involved in something far uglier than flirtation, something that had money behind it, men behind it, and one name behind it, repeated like a threat: the Duke of Halewood. The Duke of Halewood did not merely belong to the ton, he owned it. His balls set the season's tone, his opinion could raise or ruin a family, his signature could buy a magistrate's silence. And Amara Whitlock, already half ruined, had just become dangerous. The invitation arrived the following week, as if London itself had smelled blood. "The Duke of Halewood requests the pleasure of your company at his spring house party. 3 days at Halewood Manor, the entire ton gathered under one roof, a polite cage full of predators." Amara read the invitation twice and felt a cold, steady calm spread through her. This wasn't an invitation. It was a test, or a trap, or both. She went anyway, because the letters in her box meant one thing. If the Duke of Halewood wanted her under his roof, it was because he feared what she carried. And fear in men like that always turned violent. Halewood Manor sat beyond London like a carved jewel on the edge of the countryside. Stone pillars, manicured gardens, windows that reflected the sky like blank eyes. The house party began with champagne and laughter too bright to trust. Amara arrived in a black silk traveling gown, not because it was fashionable, but because she wanted to look like a warning. The Duke greeted her personally. Duke Halewood was handsome in the way a blade was handsome, polished, expensive, and designed to cut. His smile was practiced, his eyes were not. "Miss Whitlock," he said smoothly, "London has missed you." Amara curtsied. "London misses many things, honesty rarely among them." The Duke's smile tightened by a fraction. Interest, annoyance, calculation. "Come," he said, offering his arm. "Let us pretend we are friends." Amara took it, not because she trusted him, because refusing would have made her prey. At dinner that night, the table glittered with silver and cruelty. Every seat was filled with some form of power, marquises and earls, their wives, their daughters, and men who wore politeness like armor. Amara felt eyes on her constantly, watching, measuring, waiting for her to confess something without realizing it. The Duke sat at the head of the table, perfectly at ease, and beside him, on his right, sat a man who looked like he'd been carved out of stormlight. Not a lord, not dressed for attention, but attention bent toward him anyway, as if it couldn't help itself. His name was announced casually, like he didn't matter. Mr. Rowan Cade. Mr. No title, yet the Duke treated him like an equal, which in London meant only one thing: danger. Rowan Cade met Amara's gaze across the candles. His eyes were gray-green, steady, too intelligent to be safe. He didn't smile, he didn't look away, and something in Amara tightened, not fluttering, not girlish, alert. Because men like that didn't attend a Duke's house party for entertainment. They attended for leverage. After dinner that night, as the guests drifted toward music and cards, Amara slipped out into the conservatory to breathe. The glass walls were fogged with warm air. Orange trees bloomed quietly. It smelled like sweetness hiding thorns. She had barely touched a lemon tart when a voice came from the shadows between the palms. "You shouldn't eat anything in this house." Amara turned sharply. Rowan Cade stepped into view, hands behind his back like a man trained not to threaten, yet somehow still threatening. "Are you warning me?" Amara asked. Rowan's gaze flicked to her mouth, then back to her eyes. "I'm informing you," he said calmly. "There's a difference." Amara's spine stiffened. "Why?" Rowan took one slow step closer. "Because," he said, "you are here for the same reason I'm here." Amara's blood went cold. "And what reason is that?" she asked softly. Rowan's expression didn't change. "To survive Duke Halewood." Silence. Then Amara laughed once, sharp. "You sound like the Duke is a storm." Rowan's eyes stayed steady. "He's worse," he said. "Storms don't choose to drown." Amara's fingers tightened around her plate. "If you know so much, then why are you here?" Rowan's jaw tightened. "Because he owns something that was stolen from my family, and I intend to take it back." Amara's heart thudded. She recognized the shape of that sentence. It was the shape of vengeance. And it was dangerous because vengeance could be used like a leash. "Then we have something in common," Amara murmured. Rowan's gaze sharpened. "You're here for answers, not for pleasure." Amara tilted her chin. "And you're here to help me?" Rowan's voice dropped low enough to feel like a confession. "I'm here," he said, "because if you pull the wrong thread, he'll kill you before you reach the end of the tapestry." Amara swallowed hard. "You speak with great certainty." Rowan's eyes darkened. I've watched him do it before. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Halewood Manor was too quiet in the way prisons are quiet. Quiet because everything inside was controlled. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling until she heard it, a soft click, a whisper of fabric in the corridor. Amara arose, took the smallest candle, and slipped out barefoot. The house smelled of wax and old money. She followed the sound down a servant's stair, careful, precise, until she reached a door half open. Inside was a private study, and sitting at the Duke's desk, rifling through papers, was Rowan Cade. Amara stepped in without thinking. Rowan froze. Their eyes met. "You!"
"You," Amara whispered. "You're spying." Rowan's gaze flicked to the candle in her hand. "You're doing the same," he said quietly. Amara moved closer, anger hot. "You told me not to eat anything in this house," she hissed. "But you didn't warn me that you'd break into the Duke's study like a criminal." Rowan's mouth tightened. "I warned you the Duke kills people," he said. "That should have implied criminality." Amara's throat tightened. "What are you looking for?" Rowan hesitated. That hesitation was everything. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. Not a love letter, a deed. Amara recognized the crest, the stag pierced by a sword. Her stomach dropped. "That seal," she whispered. "It's on the letters my mother hid." Rowan went still. "Your mother," he said carefully, "kept letters sealed with the Cade crest?" Amara's heart hammered. "Yes." Rowan's eyes narrowed as though the world had shifted. "My family," he said, voice lower now, "has been trying to find those letters for 10 years. Amara's blood went ice cold. "You came from my mother," she whispered. Rowan's jaw clenched. "I came for the truth," he said, "because those letters prove Halewood stole our estate, forced my father into debt, and—" A soft laugh drifted from the doorway. Amara's body went rigid. The Duke stood there, hands clasped behind his back, smiling like a man enjoying theater. "Excellent," Duke Halewood purred. "My house is full of ghosts tonight." Rowan's posture sharpened. Amara's candle trembled slightly. The Duke stepped into the room, gaze on Amara. "Miss Whitlock," he said softly, "you were never meant to wander." Amara steadied her voice. "I prefer not to be contained." The Duke's smile widened. "And yet you are," he murmured. Then his eyes slid to Rowan. "And you," he said pleasantly, "are exactly where I expected." Rowan's voice was calm. "You set this up?" The Duke inclined his head. "I invited her," he said, gesturing to Amara, "because she carries a story that could become inconvenient." Amara's stomach tightened. "And I kept you close," he continued, eyes on Rowan, "because you cannot help yourself, Mr. Cade. You were always going to bite." Rowan's jaw tightened. Amara's pulse roared. This wasn't a trap. It was a performance. The Duke turned to Amara, voice velvet soft. "Tell me," he said, "what do you want, Miss Whitlock? Exoneration? Revenge? A confession?" Amara held his gaze. "I want the truth about Frederick Linton, and I want my mother's name out of your mouth." The Duke's eyes gleamed. "Ah," he murmured, "Frederick." He walked to the window and looked out into the dark garden like it entertained him. "Frederick was meant to be useful," he said lightly. "He was meant to deliver a letter and then forget it existed." Amara's blood went ice cold.
"And instead?" she asked. The Duke glanced back, expression bored. "And instead," he said, "he threatened to tell the wrong people." Amara's throat tightened. "You killed him." The Duke's smile returned. "No," he said, "I simply removed his footing." Amara's entire body went cold. Rowan's hands curled slowly into fists. "You blamed me?" Amara whispered. The Duke's eyes flickered with genuine amusement. "I didn't have to," he said. "London did it for me. You should be grateful. It was efficient." Amara's vision blurred with rage. She took one step forward, and Rowan moved, instantly, placing himself slightly between her and the Duke, not touching her, but shielding her. The Duke's eyes narrowed, pleased. "How romantic," he murmured. Then he leaned closer, voice like a knife under silk. "You both seem to believe you have leverage, but you've forgotten the first rule of power." He tapped the deed Rowan held. "I own the magistrates. I own the gossip. I own the consequences." Amara's voice shook, but it didn't break. "Then why invite me here at all?" she demanded. "If you own everything, why fear me?" The Duke's eyes went cold. "Because I can't find the letters your mother wrote, and I suspect you can." Amara's stomach dropped. Rowan's gaze snapped to her, and Amara realized the twist she hadn't considered. The Duke wasn't merely protecting himself. He was hunting her. The Duke smiled. "Give them to me," he said, almost kindly, "and I will let you both walk away." Rowan's voice was low and lethal. "And if we refuse?" The Duke's gaze stayed pleasant. "Then you will both become tragedies, very entertaining ones." Amara didn't sleep after that. She returned to her room and sat at her vanity with shaking hands, staring at her reflection. She had come for justice, and instead she had walked into a man's mouth. Rowan's warning echoed in her head. "He'll kill you before you reach the end." A soft knock came to her door. Amara didn't answer. The knob turned, slowly, politely. Her breath caught. Rowan stepped inside. He didn't close the door all the way. A deliberate choice. A declaration. "I will not trap you." Amara's voice was sharp. "You should leave." Rowan's gaze held hers. "You're frightened," he said. Amara laughed once, bitter. "You noticed?" Rowan took one step forward, then stopped at a respectful distance. "I'm not here to frighten you," he said quietly. Amara's throat tightened. "Then why are you here?" she whispered. Rowan's jaw worked as if he were forcing words through pride. "I used you," he admitted. "I didn't know you had the letters, but I suspected you knew something, and I—" Amara's eyes flashed. "You came to steal from me." Rowan didn't deny it. "Yes," he said, "and I'm sorry." Sorry wasn't enough. Amara's voice trembled with rage. "My mother is dead, and the only thing she left me is the truth. You don't get to take that." Rowan's eyes darkened. "I don't want to take it," he said. "I want to help you weaponize it." Amara swallowed hard. "And what do you get?" she demanded. Rowan's gaze didn't move. "I get Halewood destroyed, and I get to stop pretending I don't care if you survive." Amara's breath caught. That was the most dangerous kind of honesty, because it wasn't poetic. It was real. "Don't," Amara whispered. "Don't say that to me, not when you're still capable of leaving." Rowan's voice dropped. "I am capable," he said. "I'm simply choosing not to." Silence. Amara hated how her heart responded to that. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. Rowan reached into his coat and placed something on her vanity. A heavy iron key. "Servants' passage," Rowan said. "It leads to the east wing and the outside garden gate. If the Duke moves against you, you run." Amara stared at the key. "And you?" she whispered. Rowan's jaw tightened. "I'll distract him." Amara's throat burned. "That sounds like martyrdom." Rowan's eyes lifted to Amara's. "It sounds like penance," he said softly. Amara's voice cracked. "I don't want your penance. I want your partnership." Rowan went still. Then, slowly, as if he feared he'd break something fragile, he nodded. "Then we do it together," he murmured. Amara stepped closer, close enough to see the faint scar at his brow, close enough to feel his breath. "I will not be owned," she whispered. Rowan's voice was rough. "Good," he said. "Neither will I." Amara's hand lifted, hovered at his lapel. He did not touch her. He waited. And that waiting, more than a kiss, undid her. Amara pressed her forehead to his chest for one heartbeat, just one. A stolen softness. Then pulled back, eyes bright. "Tell me the plan," she said. The plan was scandal itself, because Halewood's greatest strength wasn't his money, it was secrecy. So they would take secrecy away. On the final night of the house party, Halewood hosted a masquerade in his own ballroom. Music, masks, candlelight, the Ton drunk on the pleasure of pretending. Amara entered in a deep crimson gown with a black lace mask. Rowan wore black, his mask plain, like a man who didn't require decoration to be dangerous. The Duke greeted them with a smile that said, "I own this room." Amara smiled back as if she believed it. Behind her fan, her fingers curled around the folded letters hidden inside her reticule. Rowan had insisted, "We don't show them privately, we show them publicly." Because London could ignore a quiet accusation, but London could not ignore a spectacle. At midnight, the Duke rose to announce the final dance. "All secrets are safe at Halewood," he declared, voice warm. Amara stepped forward before anyone could stop her. She removed her mask. Gasps rippled, because women were not meant to interrupt dukes, and certainly not women like her. "Your Grace," Amara said sweetly, "I believe you are mistaken." The Duke's eyes narrowed slightly. Amara continued, voice calm, carrying. "Halewood does not keep secrets safe," she said. "Halewood keeps them useful." The room stilled. Fans stopped fluttering. The Duke smiled as if amused. "Miss Whitlock," he said softly, "you're making a scene." Amara's smile sharpened. "Yes," she replied, "that is the point." She reached into her reticule and withdrew the letters. Dozens of pages, wax seals, names. The Duke's expression shifted for the first time. Not fear exactly, alertness. Rowan stepped beside Amara, not in front, beside, a partner. Amara lifted the top letter. "This," she said clearly, "is a record of payments." Whispers erupted like fire. "Payments? To whom? Is she mad?" Amara's gaze swept the room. "These letters show who was bribed, who was threatened, and who was silenced," she said, "including the magistrate who ensured Frederick Linton's death became a rumor." The Duke's smile thinned to something sharp. "You're accusing me of murder," he said. Amara's voice didn't shake. "I'm accusing you of ownership," she replied, "and murder was simply one of your methods." The Duke's eyes went cold. He took one step forward. Then Rowan spoke. Quiet, lethal. "One more step," Rowan said, "and I'll read the part where you admit you removed his footing."
The room inhaled. The Duke froze, because Rowan held a letter too, not Amara's, his, the deed he'd found in the study, now paired with a matching confession. The Duke's gaze flicked around the room, searching for allies. But the Ton was already doing what it always did when power shifted. It was choosing the side that looked safest, and the safest side was the one holding paper. Amara lifted her chin. "You wanted entertainment," she said to the room, "so here it is." Then she did the most scandalous thing of all.
She named names, one by one. Men who had smiled at tea tables, women who had giggled behind fans, a magistrate, a banker, a viscount, a duke. Each name fell into the ballroom like a stone. The Duke's composure finally cracked. His voice sharpened. "You don't understand," he hissed. "If you destroy me, you destroy yourselves." Amara's eyes burned. "We were already destroyed," she said softly. "We simply refused to stay buried." The Duke lunged, sudden, furious, reaching for the letters. And in that instant, the final twist struck. Lady Whitlock's letters weren't the only evidence, because Lady Whitlock, Amara's mother, had not simply written. She had planned. Rowan reached into his coat and produced a small ledger, an accountant's record book. Halewood's crest stamped on the cover. He held it up. "I took this from your study," Rowan said calmly. "Your payments, your debts, your purchases." The Duke's face went white. Because a love letter could be explained away, a ledger could not. Guards surged forward at the hostess's command. The Duke of Halewood, England's untouchable, was seized in front of his own chandeliers. The Ton gasped, then whispered, then, like always, pretended they had always known. The next morning, the sun rose over Halewood Manor as if nothing had happened. But everything had. Amara stood in the garden alone, the cold air biting her cheeks, the letters now safely in her hands. She had expected to feel triumph. Instead, she felt grief for her mother, for the years stolen by a lie, for the girl she had been before London decided she was convenient to ruin. Footsteps came softly behind her. Rowan stopped a respectful distance away. He did not touch her. He waited. Amara didn't look at him at first. "You got what you wanted," she said quietly. Rowan's voice was low. "I got justice," he murmured. "It doesn't feel the way I expected." Amara's throat tightened. "Nothing ever does," she whispered. Rowan inhaled. "And you?" he asked. Amara finally turned. Her eyes were bright. "I got my name back," she said, "but I don't know what to do with the emptiness where the fear used to be." Rowan's gaze softened. "Fill it with something you chose," he said. Amara swallowed hard. "And what are you? A choice or a consequence?" Rowan stepped closer, slowly, close enough that she could see the truth in his eyes. "I was a consequence," he admitted. "Then you became a choice." Amara's breath caught. Rowan stopped. "May I?" he asked, voice rough. Not "I will," not "you're mine." "May I?" Amara lifted her gloved hand and placed it against his cheek. Permission. Rowan exhaled like a man saved. He covered her hand with his, gentle, steady. Then he kissed her, not like a man claiming, like a man honoring. When they broke apart, Amara's forehead rested briefly against his. "If you ever try to cage me," she whispered, "I will burn your world down." Rowan's mouth curved, soft and stunned. "I believe you," he murmured. "That's why I want you." Amara's eyes closed for one beat, and for the first time in years, she let herself feel something dangerous and warm. Hope. When Amara returned to London, the Ton tried to rewrite the story. They always did. They said she was brave. They said she was reckless. They said she'd been lucky. A lady hissed behind her fan at a ball. Murderous. Amara turned calmly. No, she said softly, just difficult to silence. Rowan, now standing beside her in full view, offered his hand. Shall we dance? He asked. Amara's mouth curved. Try to keep up, she murmured. And as they stepped onto the floor, London watched, furious, fascinated, helpless. Because the most scandalous thing a woman can do is not to be desired. It is to survive the lie they built around her and still choose love on her own terms. Loveliest listener of the ton. Sometimes romance isn't the rescue. Sometimes it's the first person who asks permission after the world spent years trying to take.